Okay, hello everyone. I think we are live, hopefully. It's Katie here, and we've got Ivy joining us as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
And so excited to be talking today about teaching advanced students online, top tips and strategies to help you stretch and challenge those more advanced students, to reduce your stress when it comes to lesson planning and stuff, because I know that's a big challenge for a lot of teachers when it comes to teaching more advanced niches, and how you can position yourself to be earning more as an online teacher by teaching these more specialist kind of classes. Um, just if you're joining us live, can you let us know in the comments that you can see and hear us okay? Let us know the tech's all working fine. Tell us where you're tuning in from or what you're excited about. It'd be great to have an idea of who is joining us.
I can see we have a few teachers tuning in already, so that's great.
Excellent. Looking good. Let us know. I'm going to check on my phone as well that the stream is coming through because sometimes we have some tech issues. Let's just have a quick look.
Good idea. I've also shared in my group, so let me check as well.
Yes.
So
Excellent.
exciting for today's webinar.
Oh, yes, it looks like we are streaming fine. Fantastic.
Perfect. Same here.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll get started with some quick introductions then. Oh, I see some more people tuning in the chat as well. Hi there, thank you for joining us. Thanks for the comment. Great to hear that everything's working fine. Fantastic. We've got a bit of a presentation-y thing going on in the background, but we're going to be talking about some different ideas and things as we go through. As a quick introduction though, because I know we've got some people joining us who are already familiar with both of us, some people have got no idea who we are and just tuned in at random. So if you are new here, oh, my face is covering everything. Let me just reposition things. If you're new here, my name is Katie. Most people probably know me as the director of Abridge Academy. I've been an online teacher for over 10 years now. I'm a qualified classroom teacher as well. And a few years back, I co-founded an online ESL startup program in 2020, which had over 600 students while we were running that. Right now, I focus on selling teaching resources membership through the Abridge Academy curriculum. I also sell online courses. And of course, I'm still teaching myself online, teaching one-on-one classes and small group classes through my own students as well. That's a quick intro to me. Ivy, do you want to give us a quick introduction as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Katie. And thanks for a great short intro. Super powerful background, teaching and running your business. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivy, and I'm the founder of Super Teacher, and a web app that takes care of all the admin work we as independent educators might be facing and automating the processes. I'm a special educator turned ESL teacher, and for the past 8 years now. Wow, I'm getting old. I've been teaching ESL online to both adults and students. Recently, I've been just teaching kids, young learners, age 4 to I think 16, both with a company and privately. And yeah, thank you for having me again.
Awesome, fantastic. And I see we've got a few more people joining us in the chat, which is great. Cecile from Cambodia, great to see you. Nicole from Texas and from Canada. Amazing, great to have you guys join us. And I hope you find today's webinar valuable and helpful with lots of insights as to how to teach those more advanced students online. As a quick plan of what we're going to be talking about, there's a list of things on the screen here. We're going to first start by having a bit of an introduction as to why you might want to focus on more advanced students. By advanced, we might also be including some intermediate to advanced students here. How to adapt your teaching to really specifically target their goals, while also planning your lessons in a way that's going to be saving time with your lesson planning. I know that's a big challenge for a lot of teachers. And then we're going to really focus in on some specific case studies and examples, because I think that's more helpful to actually see than us rambling on looking at presentation slides all the time. So case studies, examples, and real life scenarios where we can all talk and discuss different strategies for stretching and challenging those particular students. And then to wrap things up at the end, we're going to look at what the kind of secret success is, which I mean, the answer's already on the screen here, getting results for your students and how important that is for being successful with teaching those particular niches. And then some marketing and sales strategies, which kind of wrap up actually and link into a lot of what we talk about throughout, but how to actually position yourself best to attract those higher earning, more advanced learners and what you can do there. So that is a quick plan for today. As a quick introduction though, I'd like you guys to let us know in the chat what you think. Why do you think students tend to pay more for more advanced classes from independent teachers? Why is this a great thing to be focusing on? And let us know in the chat what you think. Maybe Ivy, do you want to share as well? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. It's Great question, actually, because me being an ESL teacher, I have a vast experience teaching within companies where you were simply not no, you weren't allowed or able to be as flexible as you wanted. You know how those companies usually are. You have to deliver a 25 slide lesson within 25-minute window, and very rarely, really, I've been teaching with 6 or 7 companies, maybe one of them, not even two, allowed for some flexibility, like adding your teaching material or adjusting to the student's need. So I think having this option as an independent educator, you're able to incorporate your own expertise, your interests, your teaching style, everything that sets you apart and add value to that. Plus, the students themselves can get much more flexible, tailor-made class. We were just chatting before the live. I was telling you about a student I had with the company before, and then the parent reached out at some point and said, Ivy, we were happy to pay for a longer class. They were not happy with 25-minute classes with the company. And they were like, is there an option we're leaving the school. Is there an option for you to offer us at least a 40-minute class? Our child is ready for that. She's an advanced level, like B1, actually, as a young learner. So, yeah, that was the first thing they loved about going independent with me. And yeah, I think that's one of because you just have that space to discuss everything and to assess the students' needs much more.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things is that when you teach beginners, there are
Mhm.
so many companies that offer classes for beginners.
Mhm.
So and they have good structured curriculum, and they have all of that nice gamification, all that nice fun stuff for teaching the beginner students. But something that is not available for advanced learners is stuff that's specifically targeted to their specific goals.
Mhm.
And like you say, that flexibility, the ability to adapt around them, I think, is really valuable. And it's also, I enjoy teaching those students myself more as a teacher because you can adapt. They have a goal in mind. They have really strong motivations for learning English, and you can kind of bring in real examples and real projects and things to work on together. Is something I find a lot more enjoyable as well.
Mhm. Yeah, we have some comments coming.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mhm.
Pedro saying high stakes for students and for immigration regions or like certifications and so on. Absolutely. I think, and particularly like test prep is quite a big focus a lot of people have with advanced classes. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of test prep for a whole bunch of other reasons. But there's definitely a strong demand there, and more advanced students are more likely to be preparing for more higher stakes, more important exams, which are often required for things like immigrating to another country, getting a job abroad, studying abroad, all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I
That's
was
a
saying, yes, Ivy.
Oh, hi, Val. Perfect. I was also thinking about topics. Sometimes I've had students and parents just reaching out and asking me specifically, like, I want my child to be able to talk more. They're taking classes within the community group or one-on-one with their teacher, but it's just not enough speaking time, which I'm really good at. Even though they're advanced, they just need more opportunities, especially when they, come to the higher levels. They just need more, not just time, but specific topics, and just to go around expanding their vocabulary, for example, in different fields of interest, and yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
more effective.
Oh, I see a few more comments actually appearing.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of a delay, by the way, guys, between us talking, it actually streaming to YouTube, you writing a comment and us seeing it back. There's about a 20-second delay built in on the platform, so apologies for that. Portia's saying good afternoon or evening, Katie and Ivy. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I see
Portia was in
Mary.
our workshop actually yesterday, so great to see a familiar face.
Same. I just saw Mary is there as well. She just left from our previous webinar introducing Super Teachers Roadmap. So thank you, Mary, for taking time to tune in again. Perfect.
Fantastic. So to kind of summarize on what we were talking about, why students pay more for these advanced classes, we talked about them having a more strong specific reason, and often a lot more measurable for learning English, rather than just, oh yeah, like my kid needs to learn English at school, so it's kind of important. I guess we can sign them up for classes. Instead, they're like, I need to learn English for this exam or to get into this specific like job, or often it's study related, like they want to go to university or study abroad or something. They need to have a specific English level. They have a reason for learning English, which is a stronger motivation. We also talked a lot there about adapting around their specific goals. And that's something that I think is particularly unique to independent teachers that they can't get if they're going with a mass market online company. Some of those big mass market companies, they do have curriculum and sort of classes available for the more advanced students, but it's still quite generic. Whereas as an independent teacher, you can be a lot more specific and customize things around them. Yes, things that they have things that are not available from mass market companies. Either you're talking about the custom timetabling and lesson duration, be able to fit it around their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I think is also worth mentioning actually is that by finding an independent teacher, they're able to actually pick the teacher they want. So that could be a teacher who's got a specialist expertise or qualifications, or could just be a teacher who gets on best with their child and has that better rapport and connection. Whereas with a lot of companies, sometimes they don't get to pick the teacher, or they don't have any much control over that. They just get assigned a teacher at random, or the teacher might be switched to a different teacher every now and then if there's like a substitute teacher class or something, which is frustrating for students. So they'd much rather go independent and have a teacher they can rely on and they 100% know that they love. So a few ideas there to get us started.
Mm-hmm.
Ivy,
Wow.
do you want to talk a bit more then about, we talked about the importance of adapting and personalizing the learning process. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. And this is super important when onboarding new students. Even though you can reassess once the goal is reached, the original goal is reached, like I've been doing with Jade, I mentioned before, because I have a student who first signed up for just, having more reading classes and experience. And then as she grew her vocabulary and reading skills, she kind of loved learning more of the subject specific English. So, and also developing some specific skills like writing and debating, which we were lucky enough to have with ABJ Academy's curriculum. So, yeah. Let's go step by step. So the first one in personalizing the learning process would be to actually ask and understand our students' ultimate goals. No matter if they're kids, like if you communicate with a parent, make sure to check what their learning goal is. You know how if you're marketing yourself on social media and the first thing you're going to hear as a question is going to be, what's your price, teacher? Because they just see you as one of the many, ESL teachers or whatever. And they just going, probably, I'm just not trying to generalize, but that's my experience and based on the experience of many teachers I talk to. And then if you reply with a question showing genuine interest in their child, or if it's an adult student, instead of saying, $10 a class or whatever price, you could just ask, well, what's your learning goal? Let's talk about that first. So you can tailor, make the class offer and really offer them a unique learning experience that actually is going to target their learning goals and respond to that perfectly, right? And then since I think the majority of the audience today is teaching children and young learners, we tend to gather information about the student from the parent, right? Of course, we can't communicate to kids online without parents' approval and supervision. Then comes the assessment. So one thing is what the parent wants for their child. I would emphasize the importance of this one, the assessment. So even though the original goal might be something completely different, once you're in class with the kiddo and actually see their strengths and weaknesses, you can then come up with a specific learning plan for them and the goal to be reached in phases as they go forward. That sometimes does match the parents' assessment and, they're wishing for their child, but sometimes it doesn't, which is also okay. And then you have to stand your ground and just be clear, like we can get there, but first we need to, check in with these points, learning goals and points. Yeah.
Coming back to what I said before about test prep, this is one of the reasons I don't like test prep because
Yes.
quite often you get a parent reaching out and say, oh, my kid's got this exam in 2 weeks' time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just help out a little bit? They just need a little bit more of a boost before the exam. And then you assess their level and you're like, they need another 2 years worth of learning. Like, they're not going to get them in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I will invite Mary to share. She and I were just chatting about the students she has with a very super ambitious parent. And I loved her approach. The way she approached them is she actually showed him the exam and the amount of knowledge their child needs to kind of gain to be able to, even though the parent, Mary, feel free to share in the chat if you feel comfortable, but I think the parent even took the test to prove that it wasn't that hard hard. And when they saw it was super challenging and hard for their child, they kind of, put the ball down and let her do her job.
Yeah, but that's the key thing. Maybe that exam they're not going to be ready for it in a short period of time, but you can say, okay, but they're going to be ready for that in this length of time. Let's put together a plan so that in 2 years' time they're going to be in the best position to do
Yes,
well in that exam,
I
for
love that.
example.
What you just said is so important because part of personalizing the learning process is having the clear roadmap, let's say, or a learning map, so that parents still feel heard, and their goals and opinions get valued, and validated, right? Because maybe not
Exactly.
tomorrow, but this is something we can work towards, and they will have a perspective, and you can set clear check-in points, and once in a while, maybe in like a 3 months window or however you are doing it. I personally don't do that many kind of check-ins. Maybe once in like 3 months, or if we're doing an Abridge Academy core curriculum, then after each unit we will do a quick assessment and just exchange some feedback with the parent to see how it's going. And of course, adapting is super important, and because maybe the child did great at the trial class, but next time they come in, maybe they're in a different learning environment, or they're simply immersed in their everyday life, and life happens. You never know what might change and influence on their learning experience and abilities. And it's also important, maybe their goals change. Once I had a family reaching out to me, wanting their child to learn English so that it can adjust to school abroad. And then in the meanwhile, they just gave up on moving to that country. So we had to reassess and to make a new kind of plan, and goals for the kiddo. So we need to stay open to that. But still, in my opinion, I don't know what you think about that, Katie, but ours needs to be like the last in that, because if you let the parent guide the learning process, it can become messy, and in my experience, it's never good.
And that's the thing. I think sometimes teachers, particularly if you're kind of new to independent teaching, they feel a bit afraid to kind of dictate the learning plan in that way. You worry that if you tell the parent that the kid's not going to be ready in time for that exam, or you tell the parent they need to have this many classes, they need to cover this stuff. Okay, you said they were at B1 level, but actually they're only A2 level, so we're going to go back and review it with this curriculum or something. They're worried that the parent's going to say, oh, you're not a good enough teacher or something. But actually, I think showing that you're able to assess the level of the student, put together a custom learning plan, and you have a clear plan in place to get them to that goal is showing that you're a professional teacher and you know what you're doing. It's actually giving the parent more confidence. Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to dictate the learning plan and put your foot down if the parent is suggesting a plan that you know is not aligned with the child's best interests. I say parent and kid. It could also be if you're talking to an adult learner and maybe what they're proposing doesn't align with what you've assessed. Be confident with having that discussion with parents, because you know what you're doing. You're the teacher here, and that actually shows your expertise. Well, like it shows your expertise. It doesn't put them off.
Yeah, but that being said, I must mention or just comment on this. It also depends on where you are in your independent teaching journey. Like I personally, at the moment, I'm only maybe looking for adding like 1 or 2 students because some of them just finished the programs or are taking a longer break. So where you are at, like if you're just beginning, you can allow yourself more flexibility. You can try, you can onboard a student like that and work your way through, becoming kind of with more integrity and kind of not harsh, but yes, stand your ground even stronger as you go. If you can afford, to say no to students, right? Then it's easier. It becomes easier in time. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And that's the other thing as well. Like I've had people reach out wanting classes for something that I know I can't teach. And I'll say to them, I'm sorry, I don't know how to teach the IELTS exam. I just don't know. I've never taught it. I've never really had proper training on it. Never taken the exam myself. So I don't feel confident teaching it. So I go away. And actually, yes, they're turning away a potentially good, well-paying client, but realistically, they're going to be a hell of a lot of work for me to support. I'm not going to be able to teach it very well. It's going to affect my reputation. It's going to make me more stressed. For me, it's not worth it. But if it is a child who I know I can help, then coming back to what we were saying before, be confident with proposing a learning plan that will get them to the results that they need. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what the parent wants is the results. Let you need to be the one who dictates that plan.
Most definitely. Maybe one more thing to mention that I just
Hmm.
noticed we didn't mention here, and it's I find very important. Me being a special educator, when personalizing the learning process, we have to account for the child's learning style. Like, I have many of my students are actually into music. I guess it's because I am, playing some music instruments as a hobby or stuff. I just attracted those students. But yes, definitely do assess those things like their personal learning style, if they're more visual or moving all around, or express like to write. I always note these things because it helps reach the goals much easier if I know that with the child, and I can just adjust around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool. And we talking a lot there about goals and like aligning your learning plan with their specific goals. I think it might be helpful for us to sort of say what we mean by a sort of ultimate the goal that they're working towards. And the goal is not just something like improve my speaking. That's a very broad and general kind of thing. When we're talking about goals, it's like, well, what is their motivation, their reason for learning English, and ultimately why are they buying classes from you? No one's buying classes for the fun of learning English, or very few people are. Generally, they're learning English for a particular reason. And when it comes to intermediate to advanced students, here are some examples of things they might be working towards. Sometimes it's a specific exam. Sometimes they're looking to move abroad for their studies, or they're going to a local but international school, like an international school at a local level. Or maybe they're already in an overseas school or a local school, they're already in an English medium learning environment, but they're struggling with things like essay writing skills or something like that. So they want to improve their grades so they can, do better in school. Or if you look at adult learners, I think I just saw some in the chat comments saying they teach teens and adults. If you're looking at adult learners, it could be things like getting a job or promotion at international companies. Maybe they're like in a sales role, they want to improve their sales statistics with international clients, things like that. They have a particular reason for why they're learning English. Me personally, I focus more on the kind of bullet points in the middle here, moving to English medium schools and kids who are already at English medium schools and want to improve their results. I mostly teach sort of younger teens for context. But these kind of ideas apply to a wide range of different examples. Have you come across any others, Ivy, actually? Any other groups on this list?
Maybe clarify these English medium schools. I know when we chatted,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Like, what's English medium schools? Just clarify for
Yeah,
everyone.
so I would say, like, in my experience, so some of the students I work with, they are at um, a school that is following the local curriculum but taught in English, like a bilingual school. So they are still following the local curriculum, but they might also be simultaneously preparing for some overseas exams, or that they're learning in English. But English is not their first language. Or it could be that they are studying at an international school but still within their own country. Or they could be studying at international school overseas. Like their parents have sent them abroad to study overseas. And that often we see that more at like high school or university kind of ages. But you can also have quite young kids who are going overseas to study. Particularly, the whole family's moved overseas as well. The whole family might have emigrated because their parents have got a new job in America or something, and they're sending their kid to a local public school, and the kid is really struggling because their English isn't up to scratch. That could be another great niche to kind of focus on, supporting those kids settling into an English medium learning environment. So yeah, there can be quite a wide range of contexts. It could be within an English speaking country or outside of an English speaking country. They could have moved with their parents. It could be sent abroad just by themselves. They could be taking international exams. It could just be taking local exams. It very much varies.
I love that. I think that's a great niche actually to try and put yourself out there and reach out to those specific schools and environment. I mean, student space. And I was
Yeah.
also thinking everything that's topic based, following the students' interests. Like, we were chatting about some of my students, Jade specifically. She just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know what all the other children in, native English schools were learning, subject based, not just CSL, but like, what did they learn in science class? What did they learn in physics, in biology? And she was shocked to see, because she does know she has the content, but not in English. So that was a revelation for her to expand that vocabulary and skills, specific skills.
And that's really interesting to hear because actually that links in quite well to the next slide, which was what does a kid who's moving to English medium school actually need help with?
Mhm.
Because the parent might say to you first, "Oh yeah, they're looking to we're sending to English school for secondary school or something," but you then need to ask them a bit more detail and more follow-up questions to get narrow down exactly what they need to work on to make that transition to an English medium school. It could just be that their general English skills need boosting in general across the board. Their vocabulary's weak, their grammar's weak, they need to develop speaking, reading, writing, and so on. Or it could be that they actually need help with the application process of moving to an English medium school. A lot of those schools, depending again on the situation, ask the parent. A lot of those schools will require an application form, admissions test, maybe an interview to get the child into the school. They can be quite competitive. And linking to that as well as specific exams. So it could be that they are taking English exams, like it could be like the Cambridge English exams, for example, IELTS exams, things like that. Or it could just be local exams, but they had to pass an exam to get the grades needed to get into that school. And then once they've got to the new school, well, now they need help with academic English, things like essay writing skills. You mentioned subject-specific English, maybe things like reading more academic texts, that kind of thing, as well as study skills, communication skills, a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's why it's so important to ask those questions when you have a new student. I feel like we've drilled this in a lot in the last 25 minutes in, but we've really emphasized a lot the importance of asking questions to the parents for this reason. Like, you need to understand exactly what they need to work on. Ask them, do your assessment with the student, and continually keep up to date with what they actually need to improve on. Because if you're spending ages talking to them about interview practice, turns out they've already done the interview and they actually need help with passing the test, then you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat. It's a little bit off topic, but I might pull it up just while it's here. Selin's asking, just joined the live. Welcome. Sorry, I think you joined the live. That was about 15 minutes ago. Apologies for getting your question quite late. I wanted to ask you whether parents of young students are more likely to book 25-minute classes, or are 1 to 2 hour group classes likely to get booked as well? Ivy, what do you think? Because I know you teach quite a lot of younger students.
I think it depends on the market you're targeting, most definitely. And like your students, if you're doing a referral marketing, be aware of that. Like if you get a student from like tier 1 China city like Beijing, they're probably gonna refer one-on-one students wanting all of your attention and paying well. While if you have someone from what was the city? Hubei, I think, or one of them. I have tier 3 children as well. They lean more towards group classes because they tend to be cheaper. I personally don't teach groups at the moment, but I did have requirements and requests from parents. I did run a book club at some point, and in that case, I did offer an hour class where parents were managing the group. So it depends on the market, most definitely. But in my experience, if the student has some kind of learning experience online, they're probably going to want you to teach them one-on-one, because what they're looking for is a personalized learning experience. If they do have some kind of experience from marketplaces, schools, and everywhere. And if they're new, maybe they will be shy or just wanting to, be immersed into language. So again, it depends on their learning goals as well.
Yeah, I think the key answer is it depends.
Yeah.
I'd also say it's not just it's not just about budget as well, but also depending on the type of classes that you're teaching. So, for example, one of the ones, sorry, your message is coming up at the bottom here, where it says communication skills. I really enjoy teaching a lot of debating classes. Debating is a bit difficult to do one-on-one because it's one person's opinion and that's it. Whereas debate is meant to be about hearing a range of opinions and discussing different points of view. So that kind of class works best as a group class. So usually students who are looking for debating lessons, or who I'm recommending debating type lessons to, would be looking more for a group class setup. It just tends to be a better fit. So it depends on things like that as well. I've also taught a lot of small, very small group classes, like 2 or 3 student kind of classes, where it's been more of a budget related thing, where the parents wanted something that's a bit more affordable, but they're still getting a lot of individual attention. So
yeah,
it varies. Okay, quick commercial break. I threw this in here. We never got around to doing your little promotional side, but I'm going to do mine because I put it in. We talked a lot here about designing lessons and customizing it around your student, and we're going to go run into a few examples in a moment that link into that. But one of the big challenges a lot of teachers have when it comes to lesson prep is planning the lessons and preparing teaching resources, particularly when a student is asked for something very specific and very sort of personalized, right? So if you hate lesson prep, save time and teach more professional online lessons with the Abridge Academy curriculum. I'm going to pop the link in the chat as well. Basically, Abridge Academy, if you didn't know, is my company, and we sell pre-made teaching resources that are super interactive and engaging for online learning. And there's a step-by-step beginner's curriculum, but also specialist lessons for more advanced niches. And everything you need is included already. So placement tests, lesson slides, homework workbooks, flashcards, previews, games, automated feedback, all of that is already built in. so you don't have to waste any time planning your lessons. And on the free tier, you get access to a lot of this for free. So sign up for free in the link in the description, and you can check all of this out and get started. I might pass this to Ivy. I know I haven't got a slide for you, Ivy, because we didn't quite put this beforehand. Tell us a bit more about Super Teacher as well before we jump into these examples.
Yeah, I just want to first comment on you saying, like, maybe you don't know. It's quite possible, Katie, because you're so humble about it, mentioning it, by the way, as a by the way thing. And I want to thank you personally for creating Abridge Academy, because best, like, what I was coming through onboarding students out of blue, like after the companies shut down, and having everything set, including core curriculum. And now that my students have been in with the Abridge Academy for 2 years, I realized this is my year 3 now. So all of these, munchkins who were at level 1 came across level 4 and 5. And now we're intensively exploring your expansion courses, like debating and writing and kids news and everything available. So I just love it, and thanks for that. And to add to the simplicity, of running your independent business, do check out Super Teacher. It's also free. It has a freemium plan, free to begin, and it will take care of all of your admin backend work. When we first started, I know Katie and I did a webinar. And I did a little poll, and you and I explored, like, how much time an average independent educator spends weekly on these admin tasks, like tracking classes, booking classes, rescheduling manually, canceling, booking again, writing lesson feedback, sending it to I don't know which channels of communication. And we figured it was like at least 4 hours. I think daily it was like 30 minutes to an hour, I think. And weekly it was at least 4 to, I think, even 8 hours, which is like a full work day added on top of. So when you think about that, what you earn is actually split. You should count for that time you spend in your independent teaching as well. So that's why Super Teacher was very selfishly developed based on my own needs, and that's why I think it's the best thing about it, because it's based on teachers' needs. It's not like a big mega giant company made for profit. It was actually never an idea to be open to the public, if you remember, Katie. Like, you were one of the few people who reached out initially back in 2021 and said, "Wow, why don't you offer this to our teachers community and everything?" So that's how it kind of snowballed from there. Yeah. So do check it out. It probably has everything you need, if not more. And combined with Abridge Academy curriculum, like, you can literally enter class and there you are in the classroom of your choice, and using Abridge Academy, all from one place.
Absolutely. And I would really emphasize that Super Teachers save me so much time with all the admin involved with independent teaching. So things like, basically, it creates your own personal teacher webpage, where, like, a profile kind of page where you've got your little sales messaging. You can list up your classes. You can create a booking calendar. You can list class packages, recurring subscriptions, things like that. And basically, parents can sign up for your classes. They can schedule it. They can reschedule and organize their sort of system. They can purchase these recurring subscription packages and things like that. And all of it gets fully automated. So I don't have to spend any time at all messaging with parents saying, "Oh, I need to reschedule to this time," or "Are you available at this schedule?" And, "Oh, can you do a different kind of package? Like, do you have a package for this, or do you give discounts for that?" I'm just like, look at the website, it's all there. And it saves me so much effort. So seriously, it's definitely worthwhile. Check it out. There is a free plan available, and then there's a pro version, which is 100% worth it. So do have a look at that. Okay, let me just go back to what I was.
Question.
Break over.
There is a question.
We've got a question. Yes. Pedro's asking, which payment platform do you prefer? Do you mean like through Super Teacher? So on Super Teacher, the parents can choose different payment options. They can pay by card, they can pay by WeChat Pay or Alipay. Alipay supported, right? I seem to remember.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
So they can pay through their preferred payment method, and it gives them that choice, so they can pick. I think in your live earlier, Ivy, you mentioned PayPal might be coming soon.
Yes, it will. It's coming out within the next month. So to add to more flexibility and to become even more inclusive, Super Teacher is all about that. So teachers will be able to choose to either use Stripe, PayPal, or our own payment method, which is also Stripe. Yeah, I hope
And
that answers the question, Pedro. If
yeah,
not,
the key thing I'd emphasize, it depends on your student. Like the best payment method would depend on who your students are. If you're teaching, I teach a lot of Chinese students. They tend to want to pay via WeChat Pay or Alipay. I also have some students who are outside of China, in Japan, Taiwan, Korea. I've had students, Hong Kong. I've got a lot of students actually in Hong Kong, and they tend to prefer to pay by credit card. That's just what's popular there, right? So depending on where your students are, they want different payment methods.
yeah.
Okay, should we go back to our regular plan? Commercial break over, guys. We're talking about creating custom learning plans for the more advanced students and how you can save time lesson planning with the Abridge Academy lessons or other resources. There are other options out there, of course, but how you can actually use this to provide more customized and targeted lessons for those advanced students. The main thing I would recommend is first do your assessment and do those questions and things with a student before you've decided a particular curriculum or program for them. I always start with that assessment first. Sometimes that assessment reveals that what they want is something I'm just not able to offer with the resources that I have available. So that might be the end of the road with that kid, and that's fine. It's okay to accept that. But usually I'm able to put together a plan as to what I would like to help them, like a proposed learning plan of how I can help them achieve their specific goals. And then I think, okay, now what resources could I use to align with this learning plan? I tend to combine a mixture of different Abridge Academy core curriculum lessons and specialist courses, particularly focusing on lessons that got more of a real life implementation focus linked to their specific goals. And again, depending on their goals, depending on what they're working towards, I really like doing a lot of project-based learning as well. So adding in student-led projects that are linked to their specific interests or their particular goals. Like if they're looking to travel, for example, a travel-themed project. I've had a lot of students who are kind of moving to English medium schools and they want to do like a science project or something where they're going to write up a scientific report and do their own little experiment, things like that. Similar to what they do in school, but kind of more focusing on the academic English skills and stuff relating to that.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to emphasize something here that I find very specific and unique to
Mm-hmm.
academic curriculum, and because it's super practical and useful. In case you are onboarding a student you already know, maybe from company before, or you had a chat already, and now you're going to place them in Abridge Academy curriculum. Maybe you don't want to run the whole assessment lesson if you do know their level. What Abridge Academy has, which I haven't seen in, I can't even recall if I've ever seen that. But that kind of quality of introducing the lessons. So all the learning goals, you can just see them. You can glance at the lessons, at the units and the levels, and you can see everything listed. Grammar, vocabulary, learning, speaking practice, everything is there. So you can just skim through it and find what works best. Even though if you're just starting with Average Academy, which I find super user friendly.
That's really good to hear. Thank you, Ivy.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's great. And I think, it's, and that links into what we're going to talk about a little bit later on about adapting the lessons as well, like how you can tweak and adapt how you're teaching, even if you're using pre-made resources to save that lesson planning time. So it'd be really great to hear from you guys, actually, anyone in the chat, what you currently teach your students. What kind of topics do you find that you enjoy teaching the most, or your students tend to request the most? And what kind of things are you teaching with them, other than just general English?
Yeah, I can share in the meantime if you want.
Go for it, Ivy.
More than half of my students are at the beginner level, still beginner to like pre-intermediate. So we combine the core curriculum with stories that you just launched. So thanks again for that as well, an additional value to the Average Academy curriculum. So what I do, my students usually have 2 to 3 classes a week. So I would, if they have 2 classes a week, I would have them do one Average Academy core curriculum lesson, and then the other lesson, if they do well, if the progress is as planned and everything, I will have them pick a story, and then we will work on that story for a few weeks, do the reader, do the all the parts of the set, the story sets. And if they're more advanced, I have two super advanced students. We have classes 3 times a week. And so we combine one core curriculum lesson, one debating, and one science. Or sometimes one of them really enjoys writing. So I would just add a writing class to stir things up. So it's never boring, and it keeps me feel much more confident, than just following the curriculum and not knowing what to do if it's too easy or, too hard. So it allows for a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I do the same. Like I mix and match a combination of different things. It also gives a bit more variety for the students as well, rather than feeling that they're always doing the same format of lesson. They like that variety too.
Hmm.
Okay. I think this is where you're leading into some more scenarios. And this is where we want more audience participation, guys. So I've got some examples of students, and these are real students that we actually currently teach. And here are some situations, a little bit of information about the student. And then with this information, have a think about what you could offer. What kind of materials, what kind of courses would you offer for that particular student? So the first student I've got here, this is one of my students, Fiona. She is around level B1, sort of upper B1, I would say, of English. And actually, I say moving to international school. She's actually now already moved to the international school. But when I first started teaching her, she was looking to move to an international school at age of 9, and then improving her grades within school. Particularly, I noticed that when I did the assessment with her, she was struggling with sort of grammar, subject-specific vocabulary in her written work. And also when she was speaking, she found it difficult to actually kind of really explain her opinions and analyze different ideas and that kind of stuff. She'll be able to read things fine and answer comprehension questions on a text, but would struggle to explain her own points of view or consider other perspectives, things like that. So thinking about this particular student, let us know in the chat what you think would be helpful for this student. And there is no right or wrong answer, by the way. It's just really interesting to have a think about what you would offer to your student in this scenario. Moving to international school, struggling with grammar, subject-specific vocabulary, essay writing, discussing opinions, analysing ideas, that kind of more advanced sort of skills. Mary's commenting saying, those two work together like magic. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Love that, Mary.
Great to have had me, and yeah, super teacher. Yeah.
Awesome. So have a think about this student. While everyone else is thinking, maybe Ivy, I'm going to pass it over to you. This is one of my students, by the way, so I'm not going to answer. Ivy, what do you think? What would you do?
Yeah, I think it's a bit challenging because her speaking level is super high, but she does struggle with grammar and, okay, subject-specific vocabulary. I would expect that to be a challenge. And yeah, maybe I would probably combine the reading lessons, like the stories, and having her tell them, rewrite them, discuss, use lots of comprehension check questions, give her alternative ending, like you already propose in your reading lessons, which is perfect for that. Discussing opinions, yeah, everything is covered. And then I would see if she's open to the debating lessons, most definitely, where she does have to explore, find data, do a lot of research. Then I could combine that with writing an essay on the topic. I think, yeah, the debating course would be my number one choice, combined with the stories, interactive stories. How
Love
about
that idea.
you? Could be completely off topic, but that's what I was thinking. That's what
Yeah.
came.
Any ideas in the chat? Let us know what you think. What would you teach to this student? And interesting about the stories, because actually, that's a very good idea. I might bring that up with the stories are quite new to Able Academy. When I first started working with Fiona, I first started working with her 3 years ago. I think she's been with me about 3 years now. So at the time we didn't have the stories, but I think you're right. The creative writing, which is where they rewrite the story in their own words, and then work on things like tweaking the grammar, adding more detailed descriptions. That could also be quite good for her in terms of the writing side of things. That's maybe just mixing things up a bit here and there. She's more focused on the academic writing side, I would say, but that's definitely a good strategy because creative writing is still important in her English classes in school. I feel like we might have scared everyone off. Shall I kind of give you some examples then of what I actually did with this student? So with Fiona, she wanted 3 classes per week, by the way. When we first started out, she wanted 3 classes a week, relatively intense. And with the assessment, I thought it would be a good idea to consolidate first her grammar and sort of core English skills with Age Academy Level 5 initially, before she moved to the international school. And then introduced as well Age Academy debating and science lessons. And actually, since she's moved to international school, we've cut back on the core curriculum lessons and focused more on the academic writing side of things. Just like Ivy was saying, actually, with the debating classes, after doing the sort of debate and sort of discussion-based bit of the debate, we then focus a lot on actually writing it down as if it was an argumentative essay, which is essentially just debate in a written form. So combined together in that way. So I've got some examples here. This was from the Level 5 core curriculum lessons. We had some science-specific lessons where we particularly focused on some of the subject-specific vocabulary that she was struggling with. And then the debating stuff has been a really big focus for her, particularly more recently. Getting her to kind of create more extended sentences, using correct grammar and vocabulary and more formal writing skills as well. Because not only would we answer the questions, we'd then actually write it down. And she would start by just writing out bullet point notes and then work on turning that into an actual written piece of text, as if it was that sort of argumentative essay. So it's using the pre-made resources of the debating lessons, but rather than just sort of following the sort of set structure of, okay, let's have a discussion and speak around the topic, we're then linking into the writing aspect using the worksheets that are included with the curriculum to help with that.
And if I may add, like her specific case, I just feel, for those of our fellow teachers who are not familiar with anything other than core Abridge Academy lessons, the debating lessons always introduce one skill at a time, which I really love. Like, and my students love that because they can only most definitely grow their confidence in using that specific skill. You mentioned Fiona maybe struggling with discussing opinions and analyzing ideas. Like each lesson offers one simple strategy they can implement on that specific topic, but I would definitely expand that to all the topics and push her into just using it actively on any kind of debating lesson later on in a written form and while discussing the opinions. Yeah,
and that's the thing. I felt like to kind of warm her up at the beginning of the lesson, we do still want that speaking practice, and it's still important for her to be able to discuss and share her ideas, but then it's moving into the more formal writing sort of side that's been kind of a big tweak, I guess, that I've made to the lessons in terms of how I teach her.
Yeah, and I'm just mentioning this because it could sound a little bit disorienting when you mentioned that you have debating classes. It feels like you're just chatting on the topic. There is no structure, there is no goal, there is no tech implemented, but actually it's very, very specific, and the student is very clear. Everything is straightforward on what they're expected to do and how to do it, which is really empowering. This is my experience based on my students. Like, they feel super cool, especially when they win the debate.
I'm a bit mean. Sometimes I win the debate,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just better. That's just how it is.
I'm all for fair play.
And it's interesting because we talked before about group classes. Fiona, because she wanted that kind of focus more on the writing side of things, and it was less about the discussing different points of view. I mean, she wanted to talk about different points of view, but more from a analysing and writing it down as sort of a formal academic writing aspect of it. She actually wanted to have debating lessons as a one-on-one class. So we use the debating lessons, but rather than having a group format, one-on-one focus, and then more time spent on things like writing skills. Over to you, Ivy. Here's one of your students.
Oh, yes. Let's meet Jade. She's at B1, and she's really like super advanced for her age. She's just 10, but she's a savvy reader and she just loves learning everything like a sponge. Her initial goal was to be and become confident reading texts aimed at native speakers, and then later to move to the US for future studies. That's what also the parents shared at some point. And the challenges are previous learning, just focus on grammar, etc. Yeah, she did struggle with motivation, especially her being smart and everything, and just she couldn't swim in the company structured lessons. She just felt kind of bored, and struggles with advanced topic specific vocabulary. Let's see if somebody has any ideas for her.
Let us know in the comments. What would you propose? What would you suggest to a student like this? I think a big challenge here as well is that because she's wanting to focus on sort of reading texts and sort of some of the more academic side of things, but she's not yet at the position of moving abroad. She's sort of longer term planning in advance.
Mm.
Can make it a bit more challenging sometimes when you put into. I mean, the good thing is that you've got more time then to work on that learning plan. You've got more time to develop the skills, so she's even better prepared when she goes.
What
But
would
it can
you
also be a challenge when the kid's quite young, and you don't want classes that feel too like formal or old.
Yes, and overwhelmed. What would you do, Katie?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I would say reading text. I'm thinking some kind of reading of academic texts. Firstly, like so maybe some of the Age Academy science lessons could be good. The news lessons also have a lot of reading comprehension focus, like topical reading comprehension. So you could pick out some of the news topics that relate to things they may learn in school. Again, there's quite a lot of science and technology related topics there, which also include sort of advanced topic specific vocabulary, opportunities to talk and discuss around the text, but without it feeling too much like a super academic lesson. I would say those work quite well from that point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some of the stories and things like that you could enjoy. They're less on the sort of subject specific vocabulary side, and they're more on the reading skills more generally.
Mm-hmm.
That could also be worth trying out. Any
Love that.
comments in the chat? I think we scared everyone off in the chat.
Yeah,
Come
let's
on,
see.
guys, the opportunities to show off your teaching skills, and what would you suggest to a student like this?
Yeah, we do have a delay though, so
We do. That's
yeah.
true. The thing as well I noticed is that a lot of, if you look at a lot of textbooks,
Mm-hmm.
and to some extent the Age Academy core curriculum is also guilty of this, there's often quite a lot of focus on grammar and sort of formal, accurate kind of writing and things like that, sort of skills. Um, Whereas this particular student is bored and fed up of too much grammar. So it's quite a challenge as well, finding stuff that's age appropriate and still fun and engaging, and it's going to help her achieve her goals.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, we've got a
We have,
comment here from Portia.
yeah.
Creative writing. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're actually doing that. And I was surprised to see how her lack of confidence in writing, actually. And she's a savvy reader. Once again, like she has her own private library at 10 years old. Like she's just obsessed. English books, we're talking about English books. But when it comes to expressing herself, plus she's introverted and, but super skilled and everything is there. It's just that, yeah, she just struggles, especially on the topic specific vocabulary. Like, even though she knows something, she sometimes struggles is to express herself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So creative writing, most definitely.
I love
Mhm.
that idea. Comment here from Florentis Learning. Book study would be great.
Mhm.
Yes. And I like that because you mentioned about things like grammar. She finds grammar a bit boring. She probably doesn't want to have sort of general core lessons. But
Mhm.
through book studies and creative writing, there's opportunities to practice and consolidate some of that more formal learning, but while developing broader English skills.
Mhm. Definitely.
Absolutely. Should we have a look at what Ivy actually did? Let me. Oh, my slide is gone. Here we go.
Perfect.
Da-da-da-da.
Awesome. Yeah, so she was completely amazed when we both discovered. Yeah, I think she was my first student with which I discovered the science lessons properly, like in detail and everything. And then we expand on the topic. Like I let her choose the topic. We don't go one by one because it's not, like core curriculum. You can add more freedom to how you want to teach them. So we do the Average Academy science lessons and debating and news, or combined with writing, depending on her mood and what we're working on. And because we have 3 classes a week, that really allows a lot space for adapting to her needs and to whatever we are doing. So usually the first lesson we have is the debating because she loves them. She always chooses the topic. We work on a specific skill, and depending on that, we either go into writing the next class or switch to science lessons, which are her favorites as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
And yes, just recently you shared some resources she might like, and thanks for that, for the recommendations. These are subject lessons aimed at native speakers, like physics and biology. And, I try to follow on what she's actually learning at her regular school. so she's familiar with the concepts and everything, and then when she tries to express herself in English, she's just amazed with what she doesn't know, which she loves. She's just super grateful to be able to learn and expand her vocabulary. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. And I love that she's enjoying the combination of different topics as well. I think sometimes it's very tempting to sort of pick one thing and say, okay, she wants to improve her academic reading skills, reading academic text. Let's just read academic text. But because you say like she's having 3 lessons a week, if she had 3 lessons a week just focusing on reading very dry and boring academic texts, it's not going to be the most fun when I'll switch off. So I like that combination of different things as
Yeah,
well.
and on that note, I forgot to mention to you earlier as well. She leads her own kind of vocabulary diary or something because she's just obsessed with learning. She enjoys it. So she has different kinds of sections, her science vocabulary. She would just take screenshots, self initiative, like completely self prompted. I don't push her, luckily, like she just enjoys learning. And so she does have a structure. Someone might think it's all random, it's all, kind of chaotic, but it's actually not. And we always refer to her diary. She shows me, the way she decorates things and what she was thinking about. So then we move on to something related.
I actually ran a course a few summers ago, like a summer course on, it was, what do I call it? It was to do with study skills. I can't remember, I gave it some fancy sounding name, but it was basically a study skills kind of summer camp. One of the things we worked on was note taking skills, like how to take better notes in class, including things like sort of organizing vocabulary, and also subject specific notes and using diagrams, different ways of organizing and categorizing information, stuff like that. And that was actually really quite, it's interesting hearing your students are using the same sort of strategies themselves. And that's also something that as teachers, we can directly teach to our students how to take better notes, not just ones that look pretty, but I mean better notes that help them actually organize that information better in their mind and help them remember it better.
Mm-hmm. Super
Yeah,
cool.
super cool. Yes. Okay, back to me. I have another student here. This is my student Chloe. Chloe takes loads of lessons with me pretty much every single day. She is sort of upper A2 level, I would say. So not super advanced. This is more still sort of upper beginner, so pre-intermediate kind of level. But for her age 7, she's pretty ahead of a lot of her classmates. This is kind of an example of what to do if you have a student who doesn't have a really specific goal. The mum was like, oh, we wanted to have fun learning English. Maybe sort of prepare for some exams like KT exam or something in the future, but we haven't entered for any exams yet. We don't want to pressure her with exams. She travels all the time. So I say she takes classes with me every week. Every day of the week, pretty much. She takes 6 to 7 classes a week with me. But she also takes a lot of breaks every now and then to go off on fancy holidays. They seem to be traveling a lot. She's potentially interested in studying abroad in the distant future, like maybe for university or something, but she's currently age 7, so this is a long way away. And the main thing she's been struggling with in school, before she started taking classes with me, was she said that her general ESL lessons in school and also the online company she was taking classes with before, she just found a bit boring because they're just following the same sort of structure, general textbook lessons. And she really needed pushing to give more detailed, extended descriptions of things and to make both her speaking and her writing more detailed, rather than just sort of hitting the bare minimum of what's required. In class, in school, they often just teach, this is a set sentence structure. Let's use this set sentence structure. Let's put a different word in here and there. There you go. Great. Now you can write. And she needed stretching a bit beyond that. Okay, I'm rambling a bit. So thinking about this student, Chloe, everyone in the chat, what do you think would be helpful for this student? I actually was going to put up a question that someone put earlier that we missed while everyone else is thinking about this one. Again, quick divert to a different topic. But Pedro asked about vocab apps, Word Up. What are your thoughts on vocab apps? Ivy, what do you think?
I personally haven't had students using them, but being someone who loves learning languages, I find them useful, honestly. I'm on this Chinese app you introduced me to. I forgot the name. And I've been learning French and, yeah, a bit of Spanish in the past. But for kids, I'm not sure if that would be enough. Like if you're teaching adults, why not? It can't hurt. And
I
especially
find that,
find them helpful already.
yeah, I found a lot of students already using language learning apps.
Mhm.
There used to be a really good app called Memrise, which was for like vocab learning. It was amazing. It was so good. It was the best thing ever. I used to make custom vocab lists for all of my students, and it was like a kind of quiz, so spaced repetition gamified learning quiz app thing for learning vocab. Amazing. And then they went and changed it to some weird version of Duolingo, scrapped the ability to create your own quizzes, and completely tanked the app, and now it's rubbish, so don't use it. But that was one I used to really recommend because you could create custom lists. So depending on what you taught the student that lesson, you can then add it to the student's sort of deck. And you can actually add the student as an editor, so they can add it to their own deck if they prefer. And then they'd have this sort of deck of flashcard kind of vocab to review. And it was really good for that. So if anyone's got any recommendations of alternatives to memoirs, I would love to know. I'm going to check out this word up. I've not heard of it. I've also used one called Blookit quite a bit with my students, but it doesn't have that continual spaced repetition approach. It's just like a one-off quiz, and of course Wordwall, those kind of things for sort of set sort of assignments, homework, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think they can be really powerful. The key thing is to be able to customize it around the specific student and make it fit with how they most prefer to learn.
And you just mentioned Wordwall. Yeah, I would definitely also share that I find it super useful, like those kind of web apps that are not just independent learning, but also interactive, like Wordwall. Like you can literally click, drag and drop, match, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I like about it is that you get to pick the words, and
Yeah.
you're the one who sets it up,
Yeah.
because you want something that fits around what they're learning in your classes. Otherwise, it's just another generic app they could just be
Yes.
using,
Yeah, definitely. And we're
nothing
all about
special.
customizing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, coming back to my student Chloe then. We haven't got any suggestions in the chat for Chloe.
I can share.
What do you think, Ivy?
I definitely think your stories, because they have, I love all the parts like reading and then reinventing the ending and stuff. And also maybe project based learning and incorporating her own interests, most definitely. Because if she doesn't want to express herself much, then she might, I mean, it's also age related. She's only 7. So she might be like one word reply and stuff, right? But if you incorporate her toys into the lesson or something she really loves, I'm sure she would be more than happy to have more like play based lessons of role play and stuff to prompt her for more output and to give more detail and expanded descriptions. I would also definitely include her fun homework, because for her it's all about having fun learning English. So maybe little kind of challenges or assignments for in between classes, to interview her parents or to gather some fun info, fun facts on the topic and stuff like that. So definitely include the family as well in that way, kind of passive learning. I mean, out of class learning.
Yeah, and I love that as well, because in a lot of those companies, the way that they do homework and things, if they do it at all, would be just like a preset quiz or something. But I love the idea of including it with the family and getting them engaged and her to actually do something in person.
So she can feel, I mean, it makes sense, and she feels the why she's doing some things. And yeah, especially because they are traveling often, like she really needs to be able to use her language, English skills actively.
I'm going to start doing that for homework, because I haven't been doing that with her. She doesn't really like homework. But that is a great idea when she goes on holidays, which is like every few months she's off on holiday, I swear. Crazy. And next time she goes off on a fancy holiday, I'm like, I want her to come back with, I don't know, a quick diary entry from visiting a museum, or interview someone from that country, and what do they say their job was or something.
You know what I find super useful with little ones like her, and you might want to try as well, is putting her in charge. So I explained to such kids clearly, you are in charge. You know English best in your family. Mommy doesn't know it so well. Daddy doesn't know. And we make fun of that. We just kind of use that. So she's their teacher. I'm her teacher. And then I would often assign that kind of homework, retell what we did, or quiz mommy as I quizzed you, see how many rights she can get, so she can build up the confidence to express herself. And of course, parents are like always losing in the challenges, right? But yeah, for her, it would definitely be important to build also the relationship with the parent, and yeah, based on the English skills. Maybe that's
I like that.
But
I'm
yeah.
stealing that idea, definitely. Absolutely. This is why I love our discussions, because I always get so many different ideas. Like this student I've been working with, she started with me in September, but that's something I hadn't thought of. So I'm going to definitely introduce some of those ideas. So that's what I actually did. What I currently do, I just teach students still taking class with me every week. We had a combination. She was, say, around A2 level. of Cambridge Academy level 4 core curriculum. She's now actually on to level 5. She's gone through the lessons pretty quickly. And we have a combination of those core curriculum lessons, and again, so expanding upon that, talking more around what you can see in the pictures, linking into what she's been visiting maybe on holiday, things like that. So they've got all the kind of normal core lessons. But then also we talked a bit about like the stories. She loves the stories. The stories are like her favorite thing ever. So she loves reading the stories, talking about it, writing her own versions of the stories. We have all the discussion questions around it, acting out, role play, different scenarios from the stories. There's little origami activities or like creative projects and things like that that are suggested at the end of the story lessons, that she really enjoys doing that as well. So we do a lot of those sort of things to have a bit more fun around it. Because I put here one time something fun. She really wanted, like the mum says, she wants to enjoy learning English. She's still at a very young age. So she needs stretching and challenging. Yes, she needs to sort of develop more advanced skills, but because she doesn't have that really, really specific thing that she's working towards, like a particular exam or a particular like thing that she needs to learn English kind of imminently for, the mum wants to build that more kind of basic kind of enjoyments of learning. So that's what we had, a lot of fun stuff like stories. This was the School of Magic lesson, which she really enjoyed. More fun things. We've also been playing around a lot in Koala Go with, I use Koala Go as my teaching platform, and I've built a lot of these like role play scenarios based on what she's doing in the core lessons. So in the lesson, this particular one, for example, the lesson was about sort of ordering food in a restaurant or something. So I put up in Koala Go, it only took a few minutes to create a very simple kind of restaurant scenario, put in the kind of key sentence structures and things that we're practicing, example menu or whatever, and then we just role played that scenario of going into a restaurant ordering food. And it links in well what she does when she goes and travels and things, because when she's traveling, she can then practice ordering food for her family in a restaurant, or actually it's a cafe, sorry, that kind of thing. So those kind of role plays, that kind of combination of the stories and linking into what she's learning in the core lessons, but having a bit more fun around it has been a really big focus with her. I feel as well that she needs pushing to give more detailed and extended descriptions. When we have these role plays, the idea is getting away from the preset sort of dialogue and having that more open-ended discussion. You can have a bit more detail, a bit more explanation. A sort of funny thing happens. Oh, that's really funny. Oh no, I spilled my coffee. What would you like instead? Kind of a little bit more play around it. And when it comes to the stories and stuff, getting her to give more detailed descriptions of what she can see, adding an adjective, adding a simile, kind of giving a bit more of that extension has been really valuable. Okay, I talked a lot there. Sorry.
That's perfect.
I teach the student a lot, so we chat a lot about.
Is that 6 classes a week?
Yes.
Oh wow.
she is a very keen student. So yeah, 6 classes a week. Awesome. She does. She's wonderful. But very, very intense sometimes. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got a final example here, and this is a slightly older student. I know we had someone in the chat earlier who said they were teaching some teens to adults, so maybe this could be a good one to have a think about. And this is another one of my students who has now stopped taking classes with me because she's gone off to university, which is very exciting. But when she started taking classes with me, she was around B2 level, so upper B2 level, age 16. And her goal was to get into a top UK university to study science. But she was really struggling. She was already in international school, but within her own country. She was living in Hong Kong. But she was really struggling with keeping up with the teacher in lessons because the teacher is going kind of at my pace, 100 miles an hour. And she was struggling with that kind of reading and listening and comprehension. Also, the sort of formal writing that you have to do in school, writing essays and doing sort of school assignments and things. And then she was worried about when she's applying to study abroad, demonstrating that she really loves science. And it's really important when you're applying to UK universities, is when you write your application, they want you to sort of demonstrate, oh yeah, I entered this science competition, or I won these awards, or in my own time, I did this fun experiment. Like this kind of ability to demonstrate that you're really so passionate about your subject that you'll spend your own spare time learning more about that subject. That's more of a UK university specific thing, but it was something she was a bit nervous about because it's not really so much encouraged in her local kind of learning environment. Okay, anyone got any ideas to put in the chat? What would you suggest for a student like this? Oh, we've got an idea Portia's put for Chloe. There's a bit of a delay, we're saying, with the article actually streaming, so apologies for missing this earlier.
Yeah.
Chloe says, Portia says, pulling from her past travel experiences, maybe 1 or 2 interests for a specific lesson for her. Absolutely. yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but drawing those challenge experiences really help. We actually did one just the other day, which was I think the lesson, it was one of the core lessons, was about it was a sort of travel related topic. I was reading about Australia, was the lesson. It was sort of reading about sort of geography of Australia. She's never been to Australia, but she had been to New Zealand, which is kind of close to Australia. So I got her to then tell me, okay, in your own words, Chloe, what can you remember about New Zealand? What's the capital? What's in the north? What's in the south? What did you visit? What's the weather like? All these sort of things. So linking it into her travel experiences was actually quite effective for that one, because she wasn't that interested in Australia, I'm going to be honest. But when I told her, oh, but you visited another country that's close by and has a lot of similarities, let's write your own version for that. She loved it. Okay, any ideas for Nancy? Age 16, wants to study abroad, struggles with keeping up in class and formal writing, and really demonstrating her passion for science. Ivy, what do you think?
Oh, super challenging. I've been thinking about her, and other than like essay writing skills, I think I would have to work on her self-confidence mostly. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
I would just introduce some challenges that are just below, I mean, at the range of her ability for quite a while, for some time before we jump, because I feel like if I pushed her too hard, she would just completely lose her, confidence in progressing and everything. And it's really responsible. I wouldn't dare, honestly, like getting into a top UK university to study science. It's a lot pressure on you as a teacher already, and not to mention the parents and the child. So yeah, I admire you teaching her, honestly.
I used to do a lot of students like this. I'm going to be honest, I kind of moved away from the kind of university admissions and study abroad prep type stuff, because I I enjoy teaching some aspects of it, but I think there's a lot of pressure around it, and often you get students who are being pushed by their parents a lot. Nancy was a lovely student. She was very much passionate about herself. I wasn't just coming from the parents' end.
Mhm.
But yeah, it can be quite a big challenge sometimes.
Actually,
Um,
I think I would definitely look for peer essays. I think I would
mm,
use her to kind of secondary sources a lot,
yeah,
to show her how it can be done, to grow her skill set that way. Like, these are just examples. Let's pick up something you like, something you feel connected to, or you can use in your own writing and expressing, demonstrating a passion for science. She's obviously passionate about it. Maybe she's just struggling expressing that in English. So um, I think it would also help you as a teacher knowing maybe her native language. I'm not sure where she's coming from, but that would be super useful. So if it was me getting a student referral like that, I would definitely forward her to you or to another teacher who really knows what they're doing when it comes to, such kind of prep. I really don't dare. I don't play with it. So
and actually, that links into something I was going to mention a bit later on. But when it comes to this idea of picking a niche and sort of focusing in particular areas, we're talking about how targeting these more advanced students, you can charge more for your classes, you can really stand out by specializing. But it's key to specialize in something you are confident and passionate about and an expert in.
mm,
Sometimes it's very tempting to be like, oh, look, everyone's paying loads of money for IELTS classes. Let's teach that, even though I don't know what the IELTS exam is. Um,
mhm,
but picking things that you yourself have got that sort of background experience in. I studied science at university. I did a, a what's the word? PGCE. That's the word.
mm,
English is avoiding escaping my brain today. I've been talking too much. My PGCE, my teacher training, was in teaching science originally. So this was very much something that I guess I had more of a background in, and therefore was in kind of well positioned to support this kind of student.
mhm.
Um,
And when I think more, I think I would definitely run lots of simulations with her.
mhm.
Of. So if she's struggling demonstrating a passion for science in the the admission process, I would definitely start with something she really enjoys and she just has fun with. Maybe
Yeah.
passion for music or reading or whatever, and then lead her into transferring that skills and those ideas into showing her passion for science, of course with some niche vocabulary implemented and stuff. But she just needs to I think she really needs to work on her probably confidence,
Mhm.
not motivation, but just confidence, because
And
she's
it's
a
just what you're saying before about picking like easier topics and then kind of to build that confidence up and maybe focusing on the vocabulary and that side of things. That's something I did end up doing a lot, was kind of although she was studying for A-level exams, rather than just going, okay, let's do A-level topics. Like, okay, let's take a step back. Think about what you learned last year.
Mm-hmm.
She already knew, but now we're going to learn it in English. I'm going to practice the sort of specific vocabulary because she moved to international school for sixth form, which is high school in sort of UK. She's in a UK international school. So she moved there quite late on in her sort of school learning. So she was really struggling with that sort of technical side of things. So we took that step back and picked the easier topics, but then thought about how you could learn that in English that gave her the solid foundation she needed to be able to access what she's doing in school.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
So yeah, to kind of give you some insights, this was what I ended up doing with Nancy. So we did some of those easier science topics she already knew about, but working through those sort of questions in English, using the Age Academy Science Boost lessons. We also did a big focus on the sort of scientific vocabulary. So there's a lot of words that come up in science classes, things like labeling parts of a plant, those kind of things that even native speaking kids have to learn in school. And we also looked at those specific technical vocabulary words as they came up throughout the lessons, and so picked apart sort of what the words meant, breaking down, like the word photosynthesis. Photo is to do with light, synthesis, making with light. Photosynthesis is about making things using energy from sunlight, right? Here we've got an example of intermolecular versus intramolecular forces, breaking down what those words actually mean. And then getting her to use that vocabulary to answer sort of exam style questions, not necessarily in a very formal looking actual exam question format, but practicing writing and explaining things with technical vocabulary in a more formal way.
When I said simulations, because I would still add some kind of not pressure, but real liveness into it, the
Yeah.
reality of the future situation. I wouldn't protect her from that, like excluding the goal, but no. But literally, one day I would show up as an examination board. I would might even call a friend, a teacher friend, with her consent, of course, and just to act it out and for her to experience all the struggle and or maybe success, like maybe that's what she would need, like to just kind of start swimming in those waters.
Yeah, and a lot of it's about building confidence as well. Some of this was stuff like going through stuff she'd done in school, and then getting her to actually practice at a slower pace sometimes as well, and explaining it more in her own words, having a bit more support with it was really, I think, important. More examples here of technical vocabulary, making notes of technical vocabulary. And then we also added in some more fun stuff that links into what we were saying about demonstrating a passion for science and being able to sort of explain and talk about it in a sort of non-academic way in some ways. So we did things like some of the Age Academy debating lessons that have a science focus. This particular one was on space exploration. Should the government pay for space exploration? And we practiced, yes, there's sort of formal grammar and sort of formal writing skills and stuff around that, but also just talking more generally around these topics. What does she think? What are her own opinions? Rather than just what do you need to learn to pass an exam? So we did quite a lot of the debating kind of lessons. She really enjoyed those. Coming up with different points of view. This was about, I think, vaccination, something about should everyone be required to have vaccines or something. And then she was making some points, practicing giving more evidence, and then describing it in her own words, having a bit of fun with that. And then finally, we did a scientific research project during the school holidays. This is very important, as I was saying, about demonstrating a passion for science in the admissions process. When you apply to UK university, they like you to fill out that in the application form. You write down like things you've done that demonstrate you really love the subject you're applying for. So doing her own independent science project and then entering it for a competition was something that we worked on together. So she put together like an experiment report. She did her own experiments. We practiced sort of developing her sort of academic writing skills while doing this, but without it feeling like a school report, because it wasn't for school. It wasn't a formal assignment. It's something she was doing for fun. And then we entered it for something called the Quest Awards, which is like a science awards thing. And she won a little award, which she was able to put on her application.
Super cool.
I feel like I might have scared everyone off with all the chemistry. Sorry, guys. But yeah, those are just some different ways then we've talked about in terms of adapting pre-made resources for teaching more advanced students and adapting around their specific goals. Let's move on. Ivy, do you want to introduce the next bit?
Yeah, sure. And the big question you pose here is, should students find your lessons easy? And let us know in the comments below what you think about it. Because at first it's kind of, the answer might be obvious, but when you really think about it, it's very sensitive for me, at least, like to find the perfect balance between a challenge and it being, super kind of rewarding. And think about how you can stretch or challenge students beyond the content of pre-made lesson material. In my case, as I mentioned before, with especially with the advanced students, I always tend to add another kind of lesson. For example, if we are working on level 5 Average Academy, learning about wild animals habitats, maybe we will definitely go into a debating lesson talking about should should zoos be banned, for example, linking things. You just need to look for and be familiar with what's available. And I find this super much easier than me going outside of this ecosystem of Average Academy and just looking for the right resource. I sometimes do use Get Epic Books because
Hmm.
I have the educator's account, and that helps when we need more readers, for example, when my students are interested in a topic, like specifically. Yeah, but most definitely, I just allow myself not to follow just the core curriculum full lesson in 25 minutes or 40 minutes. My advanced students are 40 minutes lessons in 40-minute classes. Yeah, so we were just, pivot into the topic of interest and then expand on it as much as there is interest. That's one way of doing it.
Hmm.
How about
That's the
you?
thing. I feel like we kind of answered our own question here. Anyone let us know what they think in the chat. Do you think
Oh, yeah.
students should find your lessons easy?
Mhm.
Should lessons be easy for students? Because everyone likes easy, right? Easy makes you feel more confident and that kind of thing.
It's again to me like it's just related to the goal still.
Hmm.
Like
Yes.
you're building the confidence and then definitely under challenge them.
Yeah. I think that's the key thing. Like, honestly, although students can, yes, it's important to build confidence and it's important for students to feel happy and enjoy their learning. It's also important to make sure there are some parts of the lesson that stretch beyond what the student's already confident with. Because if you just stick to what they already know, it's easy, but they haven't learned anything new.
Mm,
So it's about finding that balance between building confidence and actually stretching them to progress as quickly as possible towards that particular goal that they're working towards. Ooh,
we
I
have a
think we've got a
question.
long delay here with the with the live stream. Portia's saying for Nancy, I'd work on improving time management skills, science-based essays, and debates. Possibly use UK Your Mission essays. Fantastic, really good ideas there.
Perfect.
Love it. Great. Okay, let's have a look then. So we're saying we want the lessons to be not too easy,
Mhm.
um, but also not too difficult. Let's pull up some examples. So here we have a student, or our faces are covering the example. Hang on. We have a student whose goal was to move to an English medium school. We're working through this particular lesson, and suddenly you've noticed in this lesson, as you're working through the lesson itself, that they're just finding it very easy. They can already read the text fluently. They can answer all the comprehension questions perfectly. How could you extend and stretch them beyond what's just physically on the slides already? Ivy, what did you think?
Let's see if it's about planets and global warming, right? I would definitely introduce some kind of um, argument or a little debate on the topic. Like maybe I would pick a fact and see, not a fact or maybe an opinion on global warming. I would just Google for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or just use this little text: global warming. Every year, our planet is getting warmer. Cars and factories make carbon dioxide, a gas which acts like a blanket around the Earth. So, most definitely, I will get into much more discussion, much more serious discussion, like what can we do to prevent global warming? Give me three things you think of, that would help the planet or your local community, and then explore that. And then maybe we'll introduce writing those. Yeah, something like that.
I love the idea of linking it to their own experiences, their own local community, or what they personally would do.
Mhm,
Because I think sometimes when it comes to these lessons, particularly when it's a sort of, it's easier when it's a topic about, what's your favorite animal? That's obviously going to be about their own opinions. But when it's a topic that feels sort of more academic or more formal, trying to link that into their own experience is super, super powerful.
mhm.
What a quick question that's been asked here. Let us know in the chat, by the way, what you think. What could you do to extend on these activities? Pedro was asking, is Abridge Academy only focused on young learners? Not just notes. So the core curriculum of Abridge Academy is kind of more aimed at sort of young learners, like beginners English in terms of the core curriculum, but there's also all of the expansion courses, what we've been focusing a lot on in today's session, which is suitable, I'd say, for there's a lot of stuff there for teens, for example, debating lessons, the science lessons, what else have we mentioned?
Writing lessons are kind
Writing lessons,
of mm-hmm.
The English news lessons, a lot of those are aimed at teenagers, I would say. But, yeah. Okay, I think we scared people off with too many of these questions.
No, it's
How do
just
we extend beyond this activity? The other thing I might suggest is some more project-based learning as well. So here we're talking about global warming. Maybe you could, if the reading comprehension is too easy for them at this point, there is actually this particular lesson, there were more slides of reading, beyond this. But perhaps they find the reading stuff too easy, and their goal is to move to an English medium school where they're going to have to do the right things about global warming, perhaps, or maybe make a poster campaigning and suggesting things that their classmates could do to help save the environment, or write something to their school headmaster, the principal, or to their local community words are escaping, local council, for example, campaigning for something to do with global warming. Think about how you can link this into other skills that might link to what the student specifically needs to practice more of. Would be my kind of thinking there.
Mm-hmm.
Should we move on to the next example?
Yeah.
Ivy, do you want to introduce this example?
Sure, let's see. So in this case, let's see how we could extend this activity. The ultimate goal is to improve grades in school essays. And this lesson particularly is found to be too easy. The student could write short notes and use the sentence structures confidently.
This was a debating lesson for context.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? How could we extend this activity?
For me, the first thing jumps out is this idea of being about essay writing skills. So very similar to the student I mentioned earlier, who was wanting to using debating lessons, but link that more into academic writing rather than actually just the speaking stuff. I would probably close the lesson slides at this point, open up the whiteboard or a collaborative Word document or something, and get them to write down sort of an argumentative essay using the notes and what we talked about in the exercise in the lesson itself.
Love that.
That's probably the first thing that jumps to mind. Any other thoughts in the chat? Let us know what you think. I think we scared everyone off because we've been talking so long.
No, I think there are a lot of teachers tuned in, but probably the delay and things. And
there is a big delay. Yes, apologies, guys, for the live stream delay.
I was thinking the same, definitely essay writing, because it's completely natural. Follows this activity and the notes taking and prompts.
Yeah. I think we've got some other things we could do here. The other thing I often do in debating classes is force the student to think from the other point of view. Probably not so much in this particular case because the students wanted to work on essays immediately. I'm thinking essay writing, jump across to that. But if it's a student who wants to focus more on sort of speaking or understanding, appreciating different points of view or that kind of a thing, I might get them to say, okay, you think this topic, school should open in the summer or not. Okay, you think school should open in the summer. But now I'm going to force you to think from the other point of view, and please give the argument as if you're arguing from the other point of view, and get them to try and sort of put their brain into that different sort of frame of mind, force them to think in a different perspective. But yeah, okay. Should we look at the next one? I'm going to speed through these a little bit more quickly as we've already gone over time by like half an hour already.
No, it's super useful, I think.
Yeah. I always love talking about different ideas and teaching strategies, and I think we're going to get onto things like linking this into marketing, sales, and finding students and that kind of thing. Something I think we're going to really emphasize a lot is the power of good teaching and showing how you're adapting your classes around your students, even when it comes from the very beginning, like the trial class and that sort of initial sales pitch. All this is super, super important for finding students and retaining the students in the longer term. I feel like I get asked all the time about how can I find students, or my students are not converting from the trial classes, or no one's interested in taking classes with me, all my students have quit, that kind of thing. And one of the things I really would emphasize to teachers is don't just think about the business side. That is important, of course, but I think a lot of what we talk about on the teaching skills side has a direct impact on your marketing and your sales and your ability to succeed in terms of the business aspect too.
Mhm. Thinking a little bit outside of the box, like
Mhm.
especially if you are an online ESL teacher or just somebody who has been working with companies, I personally forgot to think about what I want to teach and what I can teach. I was just following, the script, the requirements, the rules, and everything. So when you get out there, you just are expecting somebody to tell you what to do. Honestly, like it's not easy to switch that mindset. I would use that word here, but yeah, it just helps thinking about all these case scenarios. It just reminds you of what you can do and your abilities, and to see who your ideal student might be, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think just think outside the box. Don't just stick to what you already know. Think about what you could offer that's going to expand beyond that. I love that idea. I think maybe we'll just wrap up this particular section about adapting lessons and move on to the other stuff, just because I'm aware of everyone's time.
Yes.
So it's because of some of the ideas we talked about there in terms of how to adapt pre-made lesson materials, which means you can save time and not have to make everything yourself from scratch, but still making it customized around the student's specific goals. Things like adding in extra practice activities on a particular ground point or a skill, like we talked about the essay skills, for example, a student is struggling with. Skipping through bits of slides they already know. There's no point wasting their time doing every single slide of a lesson. I do this all the time with Age Academy lessons, okay? Like they're designed so that you can skip sections if you want to. Do not feel bad about skipping parts of a lesson. If the kid already knows it, don't waste their time on it. And that's a great thing about being an independent teacher. You haven't got some company saying you have to spend 3 minutes on this slide, you have to read out this particular script, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, we adapt it around what the kid needs. Um, Adapting the questions that you ask, like adding more in-depth questions, getting to relate it to their own experiences, like Ivy was talking about earlier. Giving them sentence structures or keywords lists, getting to dig into like giving definitions of the keywords, something like that. And then also switching up the focus of the activities themselves. I can't in the first bullet point. Maybe I should have put that there. Never mind. So, for example, if they're having debating lessons, using that to link into persuasive or argumentative writing skills. Rather than just reading a story, okay, if they can read the story fine, they answer all the comprehension questions fine, get them to rewrite the story in their own words or create their own script for like a short scene from the story and then act it out. Getting them to link that to other skills and be more creative with it. And then there's also like I'm not a big fan of AI, I'm gonna be honest, but there's also sort of potential of using AI to create custom example dialogues and role play scenarios for specific use cases relevant to that particular student. So linking it to their specific goals and what they're looking to achieve. Adapt the dialogues and the role plays around that. That's that bit. Ivy, do you want to introduce the last section of what we're going to look at today? The secret to success.
Yeah. I think you put a lot of valuable info there, so it would be really good if you're willing to share a little bit more about the other section in detail. Yeah, but here you were referring to the long-term retention and getting more referrals and getting great testimonials, right? So speaking of long-term retention, as we talked earlier, setting the clear goals with check-in points, or kind of measurable progress, I would say, would be the best way to follow on what you deliver. Parents, if you're teaching kids, it would be super easy for parents to follow the progress and to feel that they are not just taking some eternal classes without any goal and purpose, but to actually have a clear structure about it, about the progress, not the content, not the approach. Like you can personalize everything else, but it would be great if you could give some perspective into what you're offering there.
That's the thing. I think having a clear measure of the results,
Mhm.
the progress that a student is making, even if their goals are quite longer term. Like I mentioned earlier, my student Chloe, age of 7, looking to study abroad perhaps when she's 18, right?
Yeah.
Long time away. But giving a kind of roadmap and sort of milestones that they're going to achieve and measuring that progress and getting those results
Yeah.
is so important when it comes to keeping students
Mhm.
and getting them to refer their friends, getting useful case studies and testimonies you can use to then promote your classes, all that stuff that links into the business success side that
Mhm.
teachers are always asking a lot about. How do I be successful as an independent teacher? Getting results, I think, is
Mhm.
incredibly powerful. Like focus on results and basically being a great teacher for your students, which we
Mhm.
all are. I'm sure everyone who's teaching online is an amazing teacher. It's about demonstrating that
Yeah.
by getting your students the results that they need.
It's also much easier. parents or students to refer you if they know what you're exactly what you're doing. It's not the same if they say, "Oh, my teacher teaches," just by curriculum. Maybe that's not enough. Oh, she teaches this curriculum that maybe sounds like some gigantic name, or what does it tell about the class offer? Nothing, right? Specific.
Hmm.
Yeah, or the goals, if you don't have any, like, oh, she just teaches general English. It's kind of hard to wish to come to a trial class, probably harder.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the importance of being very specific in terms of what you offer as well. One other thing here, I want to talk about a bit about the assessment and feedback kind of idea, because we mentioned about getting results. Well, in order to get results, you have to measure and assess your students' progress throughout the time they take a class with you, as well as that measurable goal that they're working towards at the end. So I always build into my learning plan kind of milestones that the student's going to achieve, and then make sure I'm following up on those with sort of structured assessments. And it doesn't have to be a super formal assessment, but it's just giving the parents an update and giving myself an update on how well the student is doing at working towards what they're wanting to achieve. So there's regularly spaced assessments throughout your learning plan. If you're using Able Academy lessons, they're actually built in feedback forms like this at the end of each lesson, which allows you to give sort of quick feedback on each individual lesson. And then each unit's got end of unit reviews, things like that. But you can also use other alternative assessment formats too. Do not feel restricted to just, a formal quiz, right? You can get the students to give like an oral presentation, get them to do a written test, give them kind of a quiz. You can make more fun quizzes using tools like Wordwall, for example, we mentioned earlier. You can also get to put together a portfolio or project of some kind that links into what you've been doing in your classes. Like the creative writing, someone mentioned earlier about creative writing. Write a story. Look, here's your story. Maybe put together a nice little pretty looking book for them that they can sort of celebrate and share with their friends. So that in itself is a form of assessment and of demonstrating results, because they've done something using what you've taught them. So
Loved it. I can only share based on my experience that both parents and students, at least mine, prefer those assessment assignments or just classes to happen while in our regular classes. So
yes,
a lot of my parents simply they don't have time to devote to some kind of project-based learning and things, especially for the assessment purposes, because kids are already stressed with school and having to meet all these teachers' requirements and whatever. So it kind of becomes more stressful than part of the flow.
yes, yeah, the same. I would say I put it into my standard lesson
Mm-hmm.
schedule. Like it just means one of those lessons that week is going to be the assessment lesson as such.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I wouldn't do it as like a homework project, because then you're relying on them doing it themselves outside of class.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily give you that same way of assessing their abilities, because you don't know exactly what they did on that project.
Yes.
So now you've got great results for your students. How can you use that to find more students? Which is the question that I know a lot of people ask, and we're interested in learning a bit more about the kind of marketing and sales strategies that building on your expertise at creating these high quality customized lessons for your students, how can you build on that to then get the results and find more students? Here are some tips. I thought I had animated that so they didn't appear, but never mind. So I'll let you guys let us know in the chat, where do you currently find your students from? How do you advertise and find students? Quick question for everyone. What places can you find students from? Might throw that to you as well, Ivy. Ivy, where have you found students from?
Yeah, most of them came through referrals. Like I did
Mhm.
have initial one or two, or maybe even three, students coming from ex companies because I was teaching Chinese students. That's very specific. It doesn't have to apply to everybody. But once the schools shut down, they just found me on social media, and that's how it started. And from there on, they refer their friends and family. I have, I think, about between 13 and 17 students, regular students, and I do teach with school as well, which allows me to invest into Super Teacher, my business project. And anyways, yeah, referrals, social media, again, specific to my audience, like WeChat and Xiaohongshu. I'm not very active, honestly, on those. But when I do need students, I just reach out to my current student base and ask them to either share my flyer, a post in their social circles, or just yeah, kind of just spread the word. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
we
absolutely. And I think the power of referrals cannot
have.
be understated. There's a lot of power there. Pedro's talking here about universities and high school. And I think definitely if go to where your target audience is. If you're targeting students in high schools, reach out to local high schools and say, look, these are the services I offer. Do you have any students who might want some support? They are generally willing to promote. I'm a classroom teacher. Right? I taught in schools in the UK, in China, and in Japan before. All of the schools I've taught at have had some kind of tutor database, or so they will refer parents to third-party tutors, not people within the school. We're not allowed within the school to tutor our own students. And they have a list of people they recommend for students to go reach out to. Now they do have some requirements often to be on those lists. They often require that you're qualified, or that you've got insurance. Perhaps is something they often ask for. That you kind of live locally. Perhaps they're only looking to recommend in-person tutors. Not always the case. Some are also happy to recommend people online. They have a few kind of requirements, but it's worth reaching out to universities and high schools locally or internationally, anywhere really, if you're teaching online. Letting them know what you offer, because they are happy to recommend. And actually, I had several students come through recommendations from
Mhm.
teachers I knew in other schools.
Love
And
that.
commenting here, LinkedIn and in-person referrals, fantastic. Yes,
I think
LinkedIn's an interesting one. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really use LinkedIn; it scares me. But if you're teaching adults, really, really powerful to use LinkedIn to target sort of business English related niches, and also the parents of kids who are working kind of in sort of big professional companies. They'll have a LinkedIn profile, but they'll be looking for tutors for their kids as well. So there's some potential there too.
I think you missed one comment from
I did.
someone previously. Yes.
Oh, Celine said here. Sorry, I missed that. Just finished setting up on Xiaohongshu thanks to Katie's bootcamp. Thank you. Great to hear that you found the bootcamp helpful. Hopefully, we get students in the coming weeks. Fantastic. Yes. And there is a free bootcamp. Maybe I'll find the link actually. Let me just pop that in the chat, because
Yeah, that's a good idea.
people often ask me about finding students from China specifically.
Hmm. And I wanted to share, remember what we talked before the live, and these days I've been chatting with one of my good friends, teacher friends, and we were talking about like how important it is to know exactly what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't have to come from the outside, in this specific scenario, like it was such a good example, it just worked out perfectly well. So this teacher friend of mine, she said, I want to teach writing. I want to offer, I'm thinking, actually, she was just thinking, I'm thinking of
Right.
offering
We had a thing
a
about
writing
this.
course. Yeah. I'm thinking of offering a writing course. And I was like, wait, when you mention course, my brain goes like, oh, are you talking about self-paced courses? What are you talking about? Because for me, that was the default thought. And the more we chatted, the more she realized, the more she went specific about it. Oh no, she said, I want to offer a live writing course. And I was like, wait, but a course is for a group, right? And she said, no, it's for one-on-one. And the more we chatted, then she got so specific that she dig out an information I had for her that was super valuable. And that was like a month prior to that, I saw somebody looking for exactly that kind of a teacher. And it was a teacher friend looking for a referral teacher, a substitute teacher. And I was like, you know what? I think that would be perfect for you. Let's try, even though I saw this info a month ago, even more. And then I reached out to that person, put them in touch, and it turned out that parent hasn't found a replacement teacher yet. So it kind of worked out in a day from her going, from a place of, I'm thinking of offering a writing course. What does that even mean? It doesn't tell me, help me to help you. Like in that regard, I think we have to help ourselves be clear with who you're going after, and then you will spot them.
Yes. I think that kind of links into the idea of being really specific about who your target audience is. And when it comes to actually your kind of sales pitch, as such, the thing that you're proposing to them, be really clear on what you're offering. Is it going to, and this also relates particularly as well, not customize your lessons around a specific student, but also if you're offering something like a group program, which by its definition can't be customized around the individual student, it's kind of, you propose upfront a sort of thing you're going to offer. Be really specific about what is going to be, what format is it going to be in? Is it going to be groups? Is it going to be one-on-one? Is it self-paced? Is it live? Is it a combination of all of that together? Which, by the way, on Super Teacher, you can offer those kind of hybrid programs where you've got self-paced course materials along with some live sessions and this ability to combine stuff in sort of very flexible formats. But plan in advance what that format is going to be and how that links into what your students are looking to achieve, right? It could be that your students are struggling with time pressure, so they're not going to be able to attend 3 sessions a week, live sessions, but they do have the ability to watch some videos. That's why you're proposing a hybrid course, right? Be specific about how it helps your student specifically. How many lessons are included? What kind of writing are you going to focus on? Is it creative writing, academic writing, scientific writing, essay writing, persuasive writing? Loads of different things. Be really specific on that. What goal do they achieve? What are they going to create at the end of it? Are they going to have something to prove what they've learnt in that program? Going back to what we were talking about before about getting results and getting actual kind of measurable things. And then how is it actually going to help them in terms of their longer term goals? Make that really, really clear.
I love how you took note of what we were chatting about. I wasn't aware. And sorry, Pedro, we skipped the slide because of that.
Yes,
Pedro,
let's go back. Where were we?
go back.
Here, finding students. Okay, so we're talking before about where we find students from, and that linked into the idea of having a very specific offer to then pitch to those students. I'm going to pull up some examples. Put these on the screen. Hang on, our faces are in the way. Let's move. There we go. These are some examples of places where you can find students. I'm actually thinking of doing another workshop where we talk in a lot more depth about different ways of finding students that are not just social media, because I know everyone gets very stressed around social media. But these are some particularly great ways that can really work without too much work. So referrals, I think people already mentioned referrals in the chat. Social media, building on like social media groups that you're in. That doesn't just have to be Chinese social media. I know we talked a bit about China earlier because someone brought it up, but like there's a lot of social media used in all kinds of countries all around the world. So think about where your target customers are active online, and that's where you're going to go. So what social media platforms do they use? If you're targeting students in Europe, they're not going to be on Chinese social media platforms. Okay? Targeting students in China, different story. Also directory and marketplace kind of platforms. So like sometimes people think that if you're teaching through a marketplace, this is a company like italki or outschool or preply, that you're somehow not independent because you're finding students through a platform. And yes, it does mean that you're going to follow their policies a little bit more strictly and limited, but it is a valuable source of finding needs and teaching. There's nothing wrong with teaching through a marketplace. A directory is actually a step beyond that in terms of being further away from the control of the website, in that a directory site is somewhere that people go to search to find tutor information. I put in the bullet points on the right there. Identify where your target customers are actively looking for teachers. A directory site is where parents go to search specifically for tutors. It'll be a website that's called, tutorsnearme.com or something, and you can search for tutors and it sends you their email address or their contact details, and the parent then reaches out to contact you directly to book your classes with you privately, separate from the website. These have got so much potential. I found several students when I was first starting out tutoring. This was when I had zero experience, pretty much zero qualifications. It's before I did my teacher training. No case studies and sort of testimonials or anything because I was brand new. I still found when I was first starting out 2 or 3 students through a local tutor directory. It's like a website where you can list up your tutoring services. And it only takes about 30 minutes to create a profile. Super easy to do. Do it. I made a blog post actually. I'm going to find the link. I made a blog post only the other week with a whole list of different marketplaces and directory sites where you can list, put it in the chat, where you can list your services and contact details for people to reach out to you and book classes. And then also local marketing. So when I say local marketing, I mean things like putting around leaflets locally, reaching out to local schools, putting up a flyer or something on notice boards, maybe in your local library or the church or outside the school, or like other community boards you might have nearby. We talked about teaching advanced students. A lot of those advanced students can be found in your local area because they've moved to your local area and they've now enrolled their kid in an English medium school, and the kid is struggling because their English isn't good enough. And they have a really strong reason to learn English because they're local and they're like in an English school and they have to learn English, and they're near and local to you. So you can stand out because you're local. So you're not competing with the entire world online. You're not only competing with the people in your immediate local area, which will be a much smaller sort of competition base. Again, I think maybe I could do another webinar with a lot more detail and suggestions on some of these kind of topics. But yeah, Ivy, any top tips or strategies when you think about finding students from any of these places?
Well, honestly, Katie, everything I know I learned from you. So, honestly, like maybe I would just recommend everyone to not shy away from self-marketing because that's what I did for the longest time, and I still do, honestly. And I know many teacher friends just shy away because we are teachers. We're behind the desk. I'm old school. I'm thinking like if they see my quality, then I don't have to do anything about it. Like it's only natural they're going to recommend them to their friends and family. But the thing is, in online teaching, the moment we switch the screen off, they go about their life. They have lots of other things. Even though they love me, we exchange hearts and everything. It's just, it's not part of it's not how it works. Like it's okay if you believe so, but that's kind of naive. I can just share. I mean, saying you, I mean me. So yeah, definitely get those things done. Take Katie's free bootcamp, referral marketing, and other free bootcamps, and just they're even full of templates. So tech side of it can't be an excuse. Only us stalling, is what makes things harder. I would say definitely. And
Yeah, I think.
local marketing, yeah, sorry. I just remembered when you first mentioned local marketing during the boot camp, I remembered I wasn't taking myself seriously. So take yourself seriously. There could be a person or two, like it happened with me, a few neighbors that had kids, and one of them even wanted to learn English herself. And whenever we would, remember when I told you, whenever we would meet at the hall, she was like, "Oh, Ivy, when are we going to have an English class or something like that?" And I was like, yeah, we will, never taking her seriously. Why not? And then once we chatted, like we did make an arrangement later. But yeah, take yourself seriously and don't doubt that you can do it. But you have to act. There are
Mhm.
some steps. And maybe just learn about what it takes, like specifically if you're teaching in Chinese market, that's what I'm most familiar with. I know there are some rules like things to post, things not to post, how long it takes, how often you should you should post, and like educate yourself with those basics. And I think, yeah, the rest, if it would just work out.
Absolutely. I think the key thing I'd emphasize, some of those bullet points on the right there, key things to think about. Where are your target students online? Like everyone kind of immediately flocks to whatever's the latest platform that everyone's talking about online. Like everyone's talking about Xiaohongshu at the moment, so everyone's flocking to Xiaohongshu Red Note, if it's the English name of Xiaohongshu. But that's a great place if you're looking for a specific kind of Chinese student. But that's a very narrow market, you could argue. There's a lot of potential on other social media platforms that no one's talking about, like Facebook, for example. And most people here probably know how to use Facebook, so you don't have that same learning curve that you would have elsewhere. So think about who your target customer is, where do they hang out online, and also where are they actively looking for teachers. A lot of people use social media apps like TikTok, for example, but they don't go on TikTok to look for a tutor. They might watch some entertaining videos, but the purpose of the platform is entertainment rather than education as such. I mean, there's educational content on there. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's lots of potential there, but people aren't looking to pay for a tutor when they're on that platform.
Mhm.
Whereas some of those are a bit different if they're in like a local Facebook group. My local Facebook group, like in my local area, if I open up Facebook and open up our local Facebook group, it's full of people promoting local products and services, including tutoring services. And people go there to look for recommendations from people locally of where to find a tutor, where to find a hairdresser, where to find a plumber. Like this is the point of a local Facebook group. So that is the kind of place that people go to find a teacher. We also mentioned directory sites as a great example as well, that's specifically teacher focused.
Mhm.
The other thing I was also talking about is the content that you create. And again, this is something that maybe to explore a lot more in depth in another workshop because we're way over time. But focus on your target students' goals and challenges. Don't just put generic stuff like a poster about your teaching services or some of the stuff I see teachers create is just sort of a generic like top grammar tips or something. That's
Mhm.
very generic. Think about who your specific target audience is. For example, I'm targeting students who want to go study abroad. So I could create content that's about studying abroad, right? Top 3 destinations for studying at English speaking universities, or where can you get scholarships as an international student, or, um, you know, I don't know, recommendations of particular universities, of particular programs they can apply to, links into what they're actively looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Because students who are searching for that kind of content are also going to be interested in classes that are going to help them achieve that goal of going to that university that I talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that is.
Yeah, I was also thinking about how the best intro video I've ever seen was all
Mhm.
about of a teacher, a fellow teacher, years ago, was her making it all about the student. She didn't say a single word about herself. She just showed what she's able to do, and it was all about the student's pain points and the way she was navigating through them. So, when we think about introducing ourselves, we're always in I statement. That's not a good way to go about it. They don't care about you. They care about themselves and their needs. And if you can deliver, for example, saying, is your child struggling to express themselves, or is your child too shy to communicate actively in another language? We can do this and that, or show through a video or something. But, those generative intro videos like mine, I think it's still that one from the ex company. But it was like, hi, my name is teacher Ivy, and I've been teaching ESL for 7 years. I am blah, blah, blah. They don't care about that. I mean, honestly. Okay, they can see I'm friendly, I have a smile, I'm, maybe good for beginner learners or whatever, but make it about them and show the value you bring.
Yes. And that kind of links into what I was saying as well about like case studies, using
Mhm.
testimonials. Again, the results you get from your real students are then things you can post about, things you can talk about in all of these ways that you're marketing. Bring in case studies and examples of students you've worked with and what they've achieved. And using those results and telling the story of that student, or how they've achieved that specific goal, and how you can then link that into other students who are interested in the same kind of achievements. I think is really, really powerful there.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I put the last bullet point here. Don't ignore the power of networking, referrals, and your local community connections. Everyone rushes to like set up accounts on social media platforms where they have no existing presence, no existing contacts, and even platforms that are aimed at countries where they don't speak the local language and they've got nothing to build upon there, and you're going to be starting from zero. Why put yourself in a position where you're starting from zero when you could be using a social media app you're already familiar with, a local community network you're already part of, and people already know, like, and trust you. Use things that you already know. Build on your existing network. A lot of students, and we talked a bit about referrals, but a lot of students I've had have come through referrals, not just from current students, but from other people who know that I'm a teacher.
Mm.
So
I love
build on
those.
those connections.
Yeah, sorry, if I can just add to that, to what you just said. I love social experiments because they just show the way we work. And that kind of fact that in 3 to 7 steps you can reach out to any person in the planet. Do you know that social experiment?
Yes.
It proves true. So it, for me personally, it goes back to how clear you know what you want and who you want to teach. No matter the field, actually, it doesn't have to be teaching, but it really works. Like if my friend Mary was talking about teaching the writing course, she had to go that specific so that I could become her resource into finding a student. I was not even aware of that. I was part of her local network, and we were just chatting because she was looking for adding her, expanding on her services and stuff. And we were just chatting.
Yeah.
And,
And that's the
and
thing, like, you
oh,
don't have to be actively annoying all of your friends and relatives all the time saying, I need students. Do you have any friends who might want classes? No, it's just about letting people know what you do. It
mhm,
comes up in conversation, and then they might recommend people to you. Or if you're posting on your personal social media about your services that you offer,
mhm,
your friends and family will see that too, and they may then pass your details on. Um, I would push more in terms of the local community when you're actually doing more direct marketing. But think of your existing network and connections. Like I taught abroad before, so I have a lot of connections in China and Japan specifically, from my experiences teaching there, right? And they have helped me a lot in terms of finding students from those markets. Not necessarily because I've directly asked them, although that definitely helps. But you don't have to be pestering people all the time. It doesn't have to feel like you're constantly selling. It's about just letting people know what you offer, because what you offer is you're offering a service that's helping people. It's not annoying to them when you're just offering to help.
mhm.
Okay, I'm rambling a lot.
No, but
That's
it's important. That's what I think all struggle with, that kind of imposter syndrome or something. Being
Yeah,
a teacher, your role is to be super helpful. Your role is not to put yourself out there and push for clients and students. Yeah, but we can do it.
yeah.
Got this.
I also wanted to kind of reiterate what we were talking before about sort of sales being all about being you as an amazing teacher. You as an amazing teacher is what's actually going to sell. So we talked already about the importance of putting together a custom learning plan, understanding your students' specific goals and challenges, and creating a plan that targets those and helps them achieve that goal. That is a really key part of the sales process as much as it is a part of your teaching process, because it helps you teach better, but also helps you sell that program to the parent or to the potential student, because they can see exactly how you're going to help them, and use the wording that they've used in that sort of sales pitch, right? If they tell you they struggle with um, speaking more confidently in class, your wording for your sales pitch would then be, I will help you speak more confidently in class by blah, blah, blah. Like, use the exact phrasing that they themselves are using to describe the challenges or goals that they have. Um, and ultimately, being a great teacher is what's going to help you convert leads into actual paying students. Um, I don't. I feel like I get a lot of teachers who reach out to me saying, "I need students. I want to work on this. I need to work on my marketing skills, my sales skills." But I think sometimes a really underlying challenge for a lot of teachers is demonstrating your teaching expertise as much as it is actually getting leads in the first place. So if you feel like you're someone who does get a lot of people following you on social media, perhaps, or they take trial classes with you, but they're not converting into paying students, then it might be a signal that you need to work more on the teaching aspects of it and demonstrating your teaching skills, making it more measurable, making it more obvious the results that your students are getting, to help with those conversions. So I'm rambling a lot. I wanted to speed through it because we have a lot to cover. We talked about this bit already. Okay. Ivy, do you want to summarize and wrap up? What were the key ideas that we talked about in this 2 hour long session?
Sure, I will try. I will do my best. Okay, so as you just pointed out, high quality teaching is key to attracting and retaining students because it speaks for itself, right? No matter if we are skilled or not in selling ourselves, that's going to sell us, by default. We just have to put ourselves into the frame of that person watching or searching for for us, right? And we should focus on each student's specific goals and needs. I love to use that as a strategy to kind of divert those trial hoppers or window shoppers at the moment they come, because you are going to experience that no matter how good you are or whatever who is referring them to you. You will just find those people looking for free service for their child or themselves. So I want to say, use that as a strategy to reply with a question, as mentioned before. How much is your class? What are you looking for? Let's see how I can help you, so I can make the offer, and so on. Get them into conversation, right? Uh, Target students where you have useful expertise to offer specialist classes. I would add to that as well, something that you feel comfortable doing. As mentioned before, music in my case, it can be something else, drama classes for some teacher, then incorporating, I don't know, play elements like puppets and stuff, whatever makes it unique, plus expertise, of course. When it comes to creating custom learning pathways, combining and adapting different pre-made resources, why reinvent the wheel? Do yourself a favor and go with something that's already made for you, and then build upon that. Because I personally started teaching independently 2 or 3 years ago, and before finding out about Abridge Academy and such, ESL specific lesson material, it was super challenging. At some point, I was like, can I even do that? It's harder than I thought. I would love to just follow the script.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. It was hard, but now after, having that base, look at it as a base that you can build upon and customize based both on your students' needs and goals and your personality and skills. Even outside of teaching, I find that super useful, and something that you can stand out um, with. And learning shouldn't be too easy, especially speaking about advanced students who want to be stretched and challenged. And yeah, make everything you do part of a bigger picture. make it measurable, and those check-in points have that in mind, because especially if they have experience with companies, those companies enforce that a lot. They even sell packages based on the progress promised. Like if you buy 90 classes, your student is going to finish level 1, and gain that certificate and that knowledge and skills and everything. So yeah, just make sure you find your own way to measure and demonstrate progress, if that makes sense.
I love that. I think that's the key thing is good quality teaching is what's going to help you in the longer term. I think attracting and retaining students, and good quality teaching requires customizing and adapting your lessons. This applies not just to advanced students. I know we're talking a lot today about advanced students being the focus, but also applies to teaching beginners as well. As an independent teacher, what makes it so unique, we talked before about why parents want independent teachers, is that flexibility and that customized learning that they're going to get, and be comfortable adapting how you teach around the students in that way.
And I just really need to emphasize, because I know many fellow teachers who are amazing teachers, but we need to put ourselves out there, like it or not. Like I know so many amazing teacher friends who are just having a few students just because they don't feel comfortable doing self-marketing, or they're qualified expert teachers and everything, but they just feel like, oh, this is not a fair play, or they just feel they can't do something. If that's just look at it as if it's only a technical thing. It's not, it doesn't have to be comfortable. You don't have to enjoy self-marketing, but you have to do it, most definitely. Be it a neighbor, next time I bump into that neighbor of mine, I should say something, right? It doesn't matter if I feel comfortable or not. I know my goal. So do something that's uncomfortable in a short term. And so you can gain, long term kind of, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
And yeah.
Put yourself out there. Great.
Mm.
Okay, I feel like we've wrapped things up there. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We've got about 10 seconds or so to comment quickly. But otherwise, I think we might wrap up our conversation. We talked a lot about teaching strategies for teaching those more advanced students. And thank you so much, Ida, for all your great insights. It was fantastic talking about the different student examples and how you could adapt and sort of plan that custom learning plan accordingly. I thought that was really, really exciting to hear. So yes, and thank you everyone who engaged in the chat and all of your great questions and all of your ideas and things. It was a fantastic discussion going on there. So really appreciate you with that.
Thank you,
Just
Katie.
a reminder before we go, if you would like to look for interactive curriculum for your online classes, do check out Abridge Academy. The link is below. And if you are looking for the best booking and payment system for online teachers, highly recommend Super Teacher, which is Ivy's company, which is an integrated sort of booking and payment system for organizing your online classes, including for one-on-ones, groups, self-paced courses, all kinds of different setups. Really powerful system. Do check that out.
Thank you, Katie, for the huge shout out.
But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you again in another webinar, hopefully soon. I haven't yet scheduled the next thing, but in a week or two's time, I'm sure we'll have another webinar on teaching or marketing related topics. I've got lots of plans and ideas. If you've got any thoughts on things you would like to learn next, do let me know. Always good to have some suggestions. I'm thinking some of those marketing ideas that we talked about earlier definitely can be expanded upon a lot more as well. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.